Hey guys, so I'm going live because a note I posted a couple weeks ago really took off engagement wise, and it was about neuroplasticity. And I realized a lot of ADHD folks and general population don't really understand what that is and how it can impact your brain. So I'm going to start basically by saying, in the ADHD space, a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that you can change your brain. And what I mean by change your brain is not make yourself neurotypical or deny any of your ADHD or autistic sensibilities. What I'm saying is like neuroplasticity means you can change your brain. And a lot of folks on ADHD content say, you have to accept your brain and you have to be okay with whatever it is. And that's good. And I've been guilty of that myself. But it is also important to recognize that ADHD folks can indeed change their brains to be more conducive to what they want. And they can make it, you know, in a way that's sustainable and not going to burn them out. And that's the funny thing, like, neurodivergence, we're often thought that we can't change things, that nothing can get better, that we can't make positive changes, but you actually can, and neuroplasticity tells us this. And there's actually a 2011 study about ADHD folks specifically and how they can change their brain, and I'm just gonna read a little bit here. Cognitive training produced measurable structural changes in the ADHD brain. Gray matter volume increases in regions typically reduced in ADHD. Some of those neuroanatomical characteristics may be reversible. So basically, this means, yeah, mindfulness, man. Trust me, I've done it with meditation. We've all done this in one way or another, right? And I'm going to get to that more. But basically, your actions will help influence your brain. And years ago, a friend of mine said this to me, who is definitely not woo, definitely not spiritual, doesn't meditate. He was advised to get into mindfulness. And he said, one of the things I took away from it is neuroplasticity. You could change your brain's neural pathways. Whatever you do repeatedly is what your brain is going to remember and run as a program. So basically, what I was saying about that cognitive study, cognitive training is true about ADHD. We can indeed change our brains. We can make positive changes, positive habits, even though a lot of content says you can't and you're sort of stuck with the brain you have and you just got to cope with it. Yeah, that's true to a degree. There are some things you can't change, but there are more things that you can change. And cognitively and neurologically, I read somewhere, and I can't quite find the study right now, ADHD folks are actually more compatible with neuroplasticity. They're more able to make positive changes. So, a lot of the content out there says you're stuck and you got to sort of deal with it. But neuroplasticity says you can change it. You just have to be willing to take the actions. And Mindfulness Man says, even more helpful than mindfulness, I have found that concentration aspect to be more powerful, even more than stimulant meds. Yeah, presence is really valuable, and that's a key part of this is learning how to not focus because that's sort of a loaded term with ADHD. Part of our struggle is that we can't quite focus. We have so much attention that it's difficult for us to corral it in one direction. But you can start to train yourself to see things, in a different way. You can change how you react to things and how you focus on things. Training your brain to focus and be okay with being a little bit bored is really huge. Like, I just started going back to yoga myself. For years, I said it's too boring. I don't want to do it. All the excuses. And in reality, it was exactly what I needed because it let my brain sort of power itself down. And yeah, I still had extra thoughts. I still had the racing thoughts, the monkey mind, as the Zen practitioners say. But as I do more yoga, I find myself being able to allow that to go and letting it run in the background without upsetting me or making me feel like my brain is out of control. So, just for fun, because I also do the ADHD tarot here on Substack, I'm going to do a card to try to contextualize this for everyone. And I don't know if anyone uses tarot here. I use tarot cards as a mirror rather than divination. It's basically to see patterns, and pattern recognition is huge with ADHDers. We're really good at it anyway. And so I find tarot can be really instructive. And I'm using a card deck called The Quiet Rebel by Lynn Thurman, a fabulous artist out of the UK. I use her cards a lot because they're kind of sassy and I love it. So, okay, the heart opener, Ace of Cups. So I got this reversed. So, upright Ace of Cups is all about being emotionally open, being vulnerable. Reversed, it's saying, you know, we're sort of closed. We feel like we can't change things, we can't be ourselves, we can't be vulnerable. And I think that speaks to what we're going through here with neuroplasticity. And, it's really interesting that our emotions and our neurobiology are so entwined. And a lot of times we get a little bit stuck in this I can't change, I can't do certain things, I have to protect myself. And this reverse is saying, you might be feeling that sort of stagnation emotionally. You're not as vulnerable or as open as you could be. But the part of neuroplasticity is we can change. We can change how we respond. We can change the habits we have. So I would say, instead of being closed, sort of try to be more open with people, and this is gonna help you rewire that part of your brain that sees people as threats. Like, a lot of us have social anxiety. A lot of us have this fear of being judged by people, that if we're our true selves, we'll be rejected. This is kind of like an anti-masking card, I feel like. Ace of Cups reverse is telling you not to mask so much, and this ties into neuroplasticity because what we take action on repeatedly is what we're going to see results. So, if you want to get better at being social, you have to put yourself in social situations and practice. If you want to get better at money or diet or exercise, anything in your life, you have to keep showing up and doing those little habits every day. And Mindfulness Man says, if we could focus deeply, we have so much to gain. The impact on executive function is enormous. There are no barriers to getting ourselves together, they just dissolve. Takes so much, though, 2 hours a day. Yeah, that's awesome. I do not have the fortitude to do 2 hours a day yet. I do yoga 45 minutes twice a week usually, and that is helping. And yeah, it does take a lot of practice. And what I'm going to say before I go too much further about neuroplasticity with ADHD, none of this is easy. It doesn't get any easier knowing this. It doesn't get any easier even if you're neurotypical. You're still going to have to put in the effort. So, a lot of people know everything about ADHD, they know about their brains, they're even aware that they could change certain things. They just choose not to for whatever reason, or they think just by knowing it's going to change. But one of the things I've learned the hard way in my life, you're not going to change things unless you actively work to change them. And it's not going to be all at once, it's not going to be instant. You're going to have to put in the work, you're going to have to do the daily stuff, the boring things that you don't want to do, whether that's exercise every day if you're trying to lose weight, eating a healthier diet. You're going to have to do those boring things that maybe feel like death in the moment. ADHD folks, neurodivergent folks, a lot of us have a hard time with consistency, but you have to find ways to make yourself show up, whether that's, if you're exercising, doing something different every day to keep it novel and interesting, body doubling with people, getting friends involved, being accountable, telling somebody, "Hey, I'm gonna go to the gym at 5," and having them remind you. Like yesterday, I didn't wanna go to the gym, I had 2 classes. I had my HIIT class first with high intensity impact or high intensity training, something. Anyway, I should know that, but I'm a CrossFit trainer, and I like doing those classes because 'cause they're different, and every day is a different workout. So I went, and I went to spinning class afterwards, and I really didn't wanna go. But just telling my mom, "Hey, I have to go at 5, remind me." Even though I didn't wanna go, I got there and I felt a lot better. So that's key here is the only way you can make these changes is by actively doing this stuff. So I could tie this into my figure skating training. I'm also a competitive figure skater and speed skater. The way you train technique is not by learning the technique and thinking about it. You don't train it by understanding it. You train it by repetition. And you do it badly at first, and you do it a little less badly, and finally you do it correctly. And this can take hundreds or thousands of times. And the mind works the same way. So skating taught me that you can't overthink your way to changing something. You have to actually get the body involved. Practice doing certain things every day, whether that's eating well, exercising, whatever habit you want to build, and maybe focusing on one at a time. So when I was skating, my jump that I struggled with the most was a double flip, and I would avoid it. I avoided it for 10 years. I stopped competing as an amateur when I was 18, kept skating, but not competing. And then when I was 29, decided I'm going to compete internationally and did my first and so far only adult international competition. And I got first in one of my events. But I did that because I was able to, train every day, be consistent, and the double flip that I had avoided for years, a couple years after that, I started trying it again, and I was able to land it. Why? Because I was actually trying. I wasn't telling myself before I even tried that you can't do it. So it's really important that we keep in mind you don't understanding is great, reading is great, knowledge is great. But until you actually implement it, you're not going to make anything better. And yeah, I agree. Ed Hollowell says we have Ferrari brains, but bicycle brakes. Yeah, and one of the points he makes is it's not that we don't have enough attention, it's that we have too much and we can't corral it. And a big key of ADHD is figuring out how to corral your brain in the right way and how to get it to do the things you want it to do without feeling like, you're fighting against it all the time. So one thing I'd recommend, a good takeaway for you is make sure, and I think this card, Ace of Cups reversed, going back to this, I think this could be a community thing, like sharing your struggles with others. You might feel blocked right now from doing that, but if you could tell other people, hey, I need some help with this. I want to change what I'm doing in X, whatever that is. And I'm going to do this daily habit. I want you to help me be accountable. Even if it's just a text thing, or even if it's like a friend of mine and I roller skate once a week. And it's good because otherwise I wouldn't get myself over there to the inline rink. I would be at my desk working. But because she's there and she says, hey, I'm here, I have to go, I have to show up. So finding ways to sort of be more open with people in your life can help you on your neuroplasticity journey because you can't do everything alone, right? You could do a lot of things alone, but you're going to need some support at some point. And, as Mindfulness Man said here, yeah, we do have incredible brains. Our brains are, in many ways, more powerful and more adaptable than neurotypical brains. We think more creatively, we're out of the box. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that and say, again, I'm not saying neuroplasticity means I want you to try to change your ADHD brain, like not be ADHD or not be autistic or whatever neurodivergence you have. What I am saying is there are ways you can use neuroplasticity to your advantage to get yourself to do more positive habits and the things you really want to do and not just keep thinking about it, like actually doing it. So, an assignment for you guys, if you're really struggling, first of all, if you feel comfortable, throw a habit in the chat that you're trying to change, something that you've been thinking about that feels out of reach and put it in the chat and we could be accountable together, and then having that accountability will help you decide to make this step forward and choose a little task. So say your goal is to lose weight. You're not going to lose 20 pounds in a week, but the way you can lose 20 pounds over a period of time is identify one little habit that needs to change. So for example, if your habit is that you don't exercise enough, you want to exercise every day, put that on your calendar. Say, this is my time from, say, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. it's going to be my exercise time. And it doesn't have to be the same thing. It could be whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever feels more conducive to you sticking with it. So I think that's really a key part of this here is finding an action step that you could take today. Well, first identifying what habit you want to change, then taking your action step. And then once you get that going and you do it consistently, it becomes a habit. And then once it becomes a habit, you could start working on other things. So if you're watching this and you think, hey, this really helps me, first of all, I'm going to be dropping a post about this later that's a little more in depth. It's going to probably be at the end of the week about neuroplasticity and some steps you could take to work with your ADHD brain and rewire some pathways in your brain to help you do the things that matter to you. And, if you also like tarot, I write the ADHD tarot, which is on Substack here. I do 2 to 3 posts a week on there, and it's basically using tarot as a pattern recognition tool and a mirror for ADHD brains. So it's really kind of a cool twist on tarot if that interests you. It's not woo, it's not divination. It's just sort of another access point to make some positive changes and see where you're going wrong and what you could do to change it. And then, of course, you could subscribe to Not Your Average Athlete, which is what I'm on right now. Um, that's more ADHD, living an uncommon life and helping people get out of their own way. So I'm an athlete, I'm a former coach in figure skating and speed skating, as well as CrossFit. And I'm also an ADHD coach. So I like to help folks get out of their own way and figure out ways they could thrive with neurodivergent brains or just in a non-traditional way, whatever that feels like for you. And if you're watching this and this really hits and you want to work with me, I also do offer some coaching. I have limited slots open coming up into June. So feel free to DM me if that sounds cool. But either way, you could check me out here on Substack. And I really hope this helped you. I'm going to try to post it later to Not Your Average Athlete. And, if before I go, if anyone has any questions, throw them in the chat. If not, I'm going to zoom out in a bit. Okay, so I don't see any questions. So I'm going to end this and just want to thank everyone for showing up and hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye.